I hope I just told you in Spanish that it should be clear that if we talk about the Russian assets, and I imagine that I have a full house, not because you want to hear me speak about competitivity, the housing problem in the European Union, our approach to the membership of Moldova and Ukraine to the European Union Cluster 1, the situation in the Middle East, European defense and security, competitivity and the double transition. If so, please ask me questions. If not, I suppose most of you are here to talk about the frozen and immobilized Russian assets. And maybe it is important to underline, first and foremost, that Belgium does not want to see €1 of that money returned to Russia. The philosophy has always been, and that's normal if you talk about immobilized assets, which are sovereign assets, it's central bank money. We're not talking about the frozen assets, to be very clear, because I noticed that there is a lot of mix-ups and a lot of colleagues mix these terms up, which you shouldn't do, because legally everything you do and everything you say is of course of utmost importance. Frozen assets belong to diverse beneficiaries and are not at play here. We're talking about the immobilized assets, the sovereign assets, the central bank money. You could compare it what happened with the war that Iraq waged in Kuwait. They also invaded the country. Their sovereign assets were also immobilized, and after the war the money was used for the reconstruction of Kuwait. And that is until now the philosophy that Europe has followed, and other nations as well. There are immobilized assets in Japan. 50 billion is in Japan in immobilized assets, and there are amounts in immobilized and frozen assets in the UK, in Canada, in the United States, in Switzerland and other nations, and they're all immobilized. So the entire world reacts in exactly the same way. You immobilize central bank money, you wait until there is a peace treaty, and in that peace treaty you get a signature of both parties, and there is an agreement on what should be done with the money. And our philosophy has always been, at the end of the day, Ukraine needs to be reconstructed. That will probably take hundreds of billions of euros to repair the destruction, and at that moment the Russian money can be used, because it will be also legally possible in the framework of a peace treaty. Now the proposals that can be made, because until now I haven't seen any concrete texts yet, because I haven't read any concrete texts yet, but I have been explained, of course, what a new proposal can look like, and the new proposal is that we are going to do something that has never been done before. We're gonna not confiscate, because we cannot use the word confiscate, but if it looks like confiscation, smells like confiscation, and it talks like confiscation, maybe you could call it a sort of confiscation. You're gonna take the money, whether it's now at the ECB. So Euroclear has all kinds of assets that have turned into cash. The cash is deposited at the ECB. You have windfall profits that are used to pay the G7 loan, and then you have tax money in Belgium on these windfall profits that is used for the bilateral aid to Ukraine. That's the chicken and the golden eggs. The eggs are given to Ukraine. The chicken is sitting at the ECB, but it is the chicken of Euroclear which represents the claim that Russia has on its sovereign assets. If you take the chicken and you start eating it by giving loans to Ukraine, saying you can start and eat the chicken, then you're in a different situation. Legally, you're in a totally different situation. Can this be legal? This is a very good question. It's a very good question. There are no clear answers. If you ask lawyers, they usually present you also with a big bill. You have to pay them an enormous amount of money, and then they give you a text that you don't understand. And then you get a second opinion of another lawyer that you even have to pay more, and that you don't understand as well. And is it possible? Is it not possible? There's no clarity on that. In Japan, they have decided not possible. Central bank money is immune. We're not going to touch it. There's a certain logic to this. Even during the Second World War, this did not happen. Immobilized money is immune. It's like an embassy. You don't touch it. You don't use it. So it's a first. We're in uncharted waters. Is it legal? Is it not legal? That's the very first question. What is the legal basis to do this? It is unclear. It's a matter that needs to be solved. Before we can go forward on this, I think everybody would sleep better if we would know that the legality of it is underpinned. We will, in any case, be buried in litigation. That seems like a certainty. I don't think that Russia will take this in a nice way. I heard a Belgian journalist on television say, "Oh, I have the impression that for Putin this money is already written off." I do not have that impression. This is not exactly what we hear from Moscow. Moscow has told us that if we touch the money, we would feel the consequences until eternity, which seems to be a long time, eternity. So they will do countermeasures. That seems to be very logical. That can take the form of counter-confiscations of Western money frozen in banks in Russia, confiscation of Western-owned companies, European companies, Russian courts making decisions on confiscations, and maybe making these decisions also valid in other jurisdictions that are friendly to Russia. Russia also has allies. And if Russian courts start saying, we're going to seize European assets, can take all kinds of forms of assets. They could turn against the clients of Euroclear, which is the entire world, against the shareholders of Euroclear, companies of European origin, you name it. And they could imagine countermeasures against it in Russia and maybe also in allied countries. So it's risky business. I think an analysis on what the consequences could be would be helpful before you take a decision, that everybody who is on board, if all the member states are on board with this decision, that they need to know what they are risking. But of course, besides the counter-confiscations and the countermeasures, we will be buried in litigation. There is already a lot of litigation running. Because, of course, we have a treaty with Russia. It is the Belgo-Luxembourgian investment treaty. And that foresees arbitrage and proceedings. And already on the frozen assets, we are under arbitrage. There's one of the oligarchs, Mr. Friedman, who is claiming countries with frozen assets like Luxembourg. He has 8 billion there, frozen, not immobilized. And he's claiming them for 16 billion. That's not very nice. That's like the sword of Damocles hanging over your head, claims of not only the money, but also damages. So it could double the amount. If you take 180 billion, you could get for 360 billion of claims. And then you have to add all the frozen assets to that, who are already in litigation. That's enormous. That's enormous. So a legal basis is not a luxury. It's not a detail. Having a bit of legal certainty might help you and convince you that you will not start losing all that litigation and all these proceedings, because this could become very, very, very costly. So that's the first issue. If you talk about the Russian assets, is it legal? What are you based on? On which article in which treaty are you based on? Are you basing your decision on to go forward on taking the assets? Then there are a few more problems that need to be solved. The next one is probably the most important one, and you don't have to take it from me. We had the good fortune of having Christine Lagarde present at the Council together with Patrick Donoghue to give the semestral review on the Eurozone and the situation, the economic situation on the Eurozone and our monetary situation of the Eurozone. And of course, this was the opportunity to ask Christine Lagarde, how do you see this? The idea of taking money that is on your balance, ECB balance, using it for something else, is this possible? And she said, well, it can be done. She didn't, of course, she's not a lawyer. She did not say it's legal or it's illegal. It can be done, but there is one very important condition, and that is that the cash needs to be guaranteed. The moment that Russia can actually claim the money for whatever reason, because a court decided so, the sanctions are lifted, there is a peace treaty that does not obligate Russia to pay back, there's a peace plan, you could read Truth Social. Mr. Trump has a 12-point plan. In that plan, you see that the money has to return to Russia. Literally, it has to return to Russia 300 billion of immobilized assets. That's probably a figure worldwide. Have to return to Russia, and then Russia has to pay Ukraine for the damage. Well, in the hypothesis that Mr. Trump, who is a very strong man, gets this done in a year, then the cash needs to be there immediately. So in case the Russian claim becomes tangible, for whatever reason, you need in a very short amount of time to be able to guarantee that the cash is there. This is of course a problem. If you take the cash and you give it to the Ukraine, the cash is gone. It's not there anymore. So somebody needs to guarantee the moment it goes wrong, then in a very short amount of time, 140, 160, it depends on how much you use. The money that you've used, let's say 140, that's the figure I've been reading, 140, that you need to put 140 billion euros on the table immediately. And these guarantees have to be not vague, but concrete, because of course the markets are watching. And if they see, you take out of Euroclear 140 billion, you start doing things with that, but you do not have a backstop for that in cash, there's no solution for your guarantee, there's no real solution, then there will be a market reaction. Then you will undermine the trust in Euroclear as a financial institution. The Euroclear holds trillions of euros in reserve. If there is a breach in the trust in the financial system, there will be very heavy consequences for our financial system and even for the Eurozone. So that guarantee has to be very, very solid. And that is, of course, a big question. Who's going to give that guarantee? Is it the member states? It's a question. I asked my colleagues, is it you? Is it the member states? Because the European Commission can make an ordinance saying we will take the money, but the European Commission cannot obligate a member state to sign a guarantee. That's a sovereign competence, which means that everybody has to put a signature on a paper saying I'm responsible for X% of that operation, and the moment it goes wrong, I will immediately pay the amount of cash if it's needed. I asked my colleagues who is ready, willing and able to sign that. Because you take the money from my country, it goes wrong. I am not able, certainly not willing, but even not able to, in a week's time, pay 140 billion euros out of Belgium's rich and full pockets. We're not able to do so, so I would imagine that everybody who's really for this decision, really wants to make it happen, also is ready, willing and able to sign the guarantee so that I can sleep quietly at night, knowing that if it goes wrong, if it goes sour, that the solidarity will make that the money is actually there. This question was not answered with a tsunami of enthusiasm around the table. I think maybe colleagues are reflecting on this now and know that certainly after Christine Lagarde confirmed that this is the case, the guarantees have to be there, they have to be concrete, they have to be immediate. So they heard it from Christine Lagarde, so I guess they all went home reflecting on this, saying, if we move forward on the Russian money, I actually morally am obligated to go before my parliament and say, if this goes wrong, we also have a problem, and I had to put my signature on a document for these guarantees. If it's not from the member states that this guarantee will come, it is for me a question mark from where else it could come. I have no answer to this question, and I did not receive an answer to this question, although it's an important one. That's the second problem, the guarantees. Then there is a third problem that Christine Lagarde put on the table that I also asked questions about, but nobody elaborated on it, but she spontaneously talked about it. That is, of course, the risk for the Eurozone. And her strong recommendation is that if you do an operation like that and you want the world to perceive it as a legitimate operation, that it would be good if you do not do it alone. And that is what I asked my colleagues also. I say, I understand why you're looking at Belgium, because we have the biggest chicken of the immobilized assets. The fattest chicken is in Belgium, but there are other chickens around. In the Eurozone, there are other countries with immobilized assets. There are 6. None of them have ever given any transparency on how much money they have. No transparency on the windfall profits of that money. No transparency on the tax income of that money. Actually, Euroclear is the only financial institution in the world that is implicated in the solidarity for Ukraine. There is at least as much money in the rest of the world. Trump says 300 billion. This means that half of it is in Euroclear and the other half is the world round. But nobody ever talks about this. Nobody ever volunteered to say, I also, Japan, 50 billion. I also have windfall profits. I also have tax money. I could offer that money to Ukraine. We're the only ones doing it. So you can imagine for me that it is a bit sour that we are finger pointed now as the unwilling country. Politico said that I'm a bad boy. A bad boy, me. How can you imagine that? Everybody confirmed that I'm a good boy. It was like I was assisting my own funeral. They all said, no, you're a good boy. It's like your funeral, everybody comes and say that you're very nice. I'm not a bad boy. We're the best boy in town. We're the best boy in town. If you talk about immobilized assets, we are the very, very best. And like I said, if you move, then you have to move together, and preferably with a non-euro country. Okay, this also is a problem. If you want to create a perception that you're doing something that's legal, and if you want to avoid very negative attention for the Eurozone, then maybe those who have reserves in pound sterling, in Japanese yen, or in Canadian dollars, or in Norwegian money, or in Swiss francs, could volunteer to say, we'll help you. We are also, every day we say that we stand with Ukraine, so now we're going to put our money literally, or Putin's money literally where our mouth is, and we're going to move together with you to make this operation a success. So these are 3 issues. It took us a long time to discuss them. We discussed about this for hours. And then afterwards at the dinner rediscussed it with Christine Lagarde, who gave her expert opinion, and also indicated that these problems that we put on the table are actually real. They're real. They're not imagined. They are not a question of not being willing or being reluctant. It's because they are real and they have to be solved. And the conclusion of the Council at the end of the day, if you look at the draft, you will see that it is short, and that it only says that there is a problem with the financing of Ukraine. This is true. Everybody thinks that this should be solved. 26 of the 27 want to solve the financial problem of Ukraine. I also. I'm ready, willing, and able to do whatever it takes to help the Ukrainian ally. Let there be no doubt about this. And that the Commission has to work on proposals, plural, for solutions. Of proposals, plural, for a solution, single, to get this done. And the drafting also states the obvious, that the immobilized assets will stay immobilized until the end of the war, which was always, of course, the philosophy of the immobilized assets, so that's a no-brainer. But for the rest, it is a question mark. So I guess in this problem will return to the table, because time is running out. I think before the end of the year we need a solution to keep Ukraine in the war and to take care of their financial problems. I'm ready, willing, and able to do so, and so I'm ready, willing, and able to engage, as we are a particular member state, holding Euroclear. We are a particular member state, so I'm ready to engage with the Commission and other people who might want to talk to me about it, to say, are there solutions for the problems that we put on the table? So, to summarize, can we make it legal? And what are the risks and the countermeasures that we face? The legality and the countermeasures of Putin. can we convince another country outside of the Eurozone, in the Eurozone, maybe the six, and can these six convince another countries to move along with us? And third problem, and I think the biggest problem, how do you guarantee that the cash is there immediately when it goes wrong? If we find solutions for these three problems, then maybe we can go ahead. If not, maybe another option can be put on the table to get the financing of Ukraine on the road.